terrorists and freedom fighters, the right and fight for separation and independence. Universal human rights were declared by the UN in 1948 in response to the atrocities of World War II. They are fundamental rights which a person is inherently entitled to regardless of their nation, language, religion, ethnic origin, politics, economics, culture, race, sex, or other status. It is declared that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Rights such as freedom from unlawful imprisonment, torture, execution, right for a fair trial, protection against enslavement, prohibition of genocide, free speech, and education. It stipulated that these rights should not be taken away from people except when they are found guilty of breaking a law by a court. The declarations were written by bureaucrats who were promoting globalization, so it is understandable that there is no mention of the right of people to separate and be independent from whomever and whatever they feel unwillingly bound to, whether it is a partner, a family, or a state. Many wars are fought in the struggle for separation. Many people choose to flee instead of fight for their freedom and cause great disruption in the safe havens they flee to. This is seen by the mass exodus of the Jews of Egypt 2,300 years ago, the flood of immigrants to the Americas 500 years ago, and the refugee problem in Europe at present. Many people choose to fight to their death for their independence instead of fleeing. This is seen by the long struggles of freedom fighters in Ireland, India, and many African and South American countries. Recent examples include Ukrainians in Crimea, Palestinians in Gaza, Kurds in Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, and Sunnis in Syria and Iraq. The tribalism prevalent 6,000 years ago and the trend to world globalism at the present are the extremes that define the golden middle of nationalism, where language, religion, and culture bind people to a nation. Nature demonstrates that when things get too big, they naturally break apart and erode into smaller parts. Banks and governments have grown too big to fail and jail. Too many people are controlled by too few. Yet, most of us can freely and peacefully separate from most things we want, if we have the will. We can separate from big banks by using Bitcoin, or from big governments by our votes. We can separate from the big food industries and shopping malls by supporting local farmer markets and family-run stores. We can separate from the military complex by refusing to fight wars, or from the pharmacy industry by living healthier lifestyles. We can separate from the hypnotizing and brainwashing mass media by changing channels and voting with our wallets. We can separate from the collectivism that robs us of our uniqueness by becoming individuals. We support amicable divorce for family couples unable to live together in harmony for the good of the children. We should also support amicable separation for peoples who cannot live together in harmony in a nation for the good of the citizens. Switzerland and Canada provide shining examples of how this problem can be more or less peacefully resolved. After about 30 years of struggle for independence, a referendum allowed the French-speaking part of Canton Bern to separate from the German-speaking part, thus forming the new Canton Jura. After about 30 years of a struggle for independence, the French-speaking part of Canada, Quebec, held various referendums for separation which narrowly failed, and they were given special status and acknowledged as a distinct society within Canada and provided protection for their unique laws, language, and culture. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.